As I mentioned before, my name is Morgan Adams. I am the outreach coordinator for the Penn Memory Center. And today I'm going to be talking about healthy brain aging, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, some of the work that we're doing, and why this is important. And so a lot of what I do as the outreach coordinator, I spend a lot of my time connecting with individuals and organizations within the Philadelphia community. And through these connections, I've heard many stories of how individuals, their families, their friends have been impacted by dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And one of the stories that I heard was that of Karen Wheeler. So here in this picture, this is Karen Wheeler and her mother, Vivian Wheeler. Vivian was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease back in 2003, and that's when Karen's journey began. Karen discovered new ways to connect with her mother through this emotional and physical journey of being a caregiver to someone with Alzheimer's disease. She actually wrote a 3-part series to kind of overview what her experience was like. And so in the first part, Karen talked about the positive moments and triumphs that she experienced from working and spending so much time so closely with her mother while caring for her. In part 2, she reflected more on the challenges that she faced. After her mother had a fall, she was contemplating moving her mother into a nursing home and experienced a wide variety of challenges during that time period in her life. And in part 3, she wraps up her story and reflects on the journey. She reflects on the financial struggles that she had. She reflected on the toll that being a full-time caregiver took and what it was like to adjust back to going back into the world in the job market after years of being the around-the-clock caregiver for her mother. Something that Karen had written was knowledge is power. For me, it's important to share all I've learned and continue to learn about Alzheimer's disease with others who are caring for a loved one. So today, I want to share with you what I've learned during my time here at the Penn Memory Center and how these topics impact you and how we can collaborate. So just a rough agenda of what we're going to go over today. Again, please feel free throughout. If you have questions, type in the chat. That's definitely the best way to reach us. If not, no worries. Feel free to write down your questions if you have a spare piece of paper. And we're going to have some time for question and answers at the end. We'll start off our talk today with just talking about the Penn Memory Center. Who are we? What do we do? We'll then shift gears to talk about what is healthy brain aging. How do we define that? And so when we talk about healthy brain aging, of course, we then bring in the topics. Sorry, I had to grab my computer charger. We have to, or not have to, but we're going to cover the topics of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and mild cognitive impairment. What are they? Why does all of this matter? And I want to give you guys some healthy brain aging tips. So what can we do to keep our brains healthy? And then we'll finish up today talking about the research that PMC is doing. You may hear me from time to time say PMC. PMC just stands for Penn Memory Center. And we'll have question answers. Dr. David Walk will be joining us for the question answer session. Dr. David Walk is a geriatrician and clinical researcher here at Penn Memory Center. And so he'll be really helpful if you guys have any questions very specific to disease or kind of how the process works. He will join in with me to make sure your questions are answered today. All right. Okay, so what is the Penn Memory Center? The Penn Memory Center is a resource for those that are seeking services related to dementia and brain health. We provide education and training as well as support services for individuals and their families. This is all done by our providers, clinicians, social work team, our communications team. We all work together to make sure that individuals are provided with comprehensive services. More specifically, what does that look like? We have services for patients, research participants, and their families. This can include counseling in person or over the phone. We also provide education about the diagnosis. So we talk about the staging of the diagnosis, prognosis, symptoms. We can help walk individuals through that. We also provide emotional support along with suggestions for referrals and local resources. So that can be for things like home health care aides or social activities to become engaged in. We also provide priority to PMC programs. So for individuals that are part of our Penn Memory Center family, we host a variety of programs, and as a member, you have priority. So our memory cafes, it's very similar to what we're doing today with the Ralston Center. Having like a healthy brain talk. We have caregiver retreats. We do mindfulness and meditation. There's a caregiver class, all sorts of resources that are available to individuals and their families that are navigating through dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So largely today, what we're talking about is aging. But in order to talk about aging, we have to talk about what is healthy aging. So the World Health Organization defines healthy aging as the process of developing and maintaining functional ability that enables well-being in older age. So what exactly does that mean? Functional ability is all about having the capabilities to do what a person loves and values. So this includes a person's basic ability to meet their basic needs. A person is able to still learn, grow, make decisions. A person is able to be mobile, maintain relationships, and contribute to society. That's how we would define or classify healthy aging. With that, though, there are a lot of different ways that we can classify age. So we're probably all most familiar with chronological age classification, but what is aging in general? Aging results from the accumulation of a wide variety of damage to our cells. So as this occurs, as we get older in age, things about our function change. Our mental capacity, our physical capacity to do things shifts over time as we age. That being said, these changes that occur as we age isn't a linear process. So you can have someone who is 70 years old and at the tip top of their health. They're extremely healthy and high functioning, while at the same time you could have another individual who's 70 years old and requires a little bit more support. Their muscles or their bones might be more frail than their counterparts. That being said, there are so many different ways. Then how do we define age? So chronological age is the one that we are all most familiar with. This is our age based off the amount of time that has passed since we were born. It's the one that we use that's given in terms of years, months, days. Now, we also have biological age, and biological age really touches in more on what I was mentioning before, where you can have someone who's 70 years old and in tip-top shape and have another individual who is 70 years old and has more struggles. Biological age kind of helps determine that. So biological age describes our age based off of our lifestyle factors. So things like diet, exercise, sleeping habits can impact our age. Smoking, drinking, chronic stress can impact how old you are biologically. So what ends up happening is an individual can actually be older or younger than their chronological age biologically. Many people, many scientists believe that biological age is honestly a better way to determine or to depict one's age as opposed to using a chronological age. And then lastly, we have psychological age. Psychological age is defined as a subjective age. It's more of the age of how you act and how you feel. There's a quote that actually says, it's not about how old you are, it's about how you are old. And so with all this, there are many changes that happen as we age. Some of these changes are benign, like the graying of hair. And some of the changes that occur do impact how we go about our daily life. So some of the changes that you see as we age, our sleeping habits change. Lungs, metabolism, changes in our skin, teeth. You might notice changes in your mood as we age. Sense of taste, things that you loved as a kid might not be so delicious as we age because they're so sweet. Changes in sexual function, your social network, who you interact with, your friend group changes as you age. Our cardiovascular system, bones, muscles, joints, you may feel more aches than you used to.
Morgan,
Yes,
Could you just check the chat room for a second?
I absolutely can.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Um, you might see some changes in your bladder, your urinary tract, eyes, ears, cognition. All of these are changes that you see over time that just occur naturally as you age. So, with aging, we're going to talk about dementia. What is dementia? Dementia is a very broad term that we use to describe the loss of cognitive function, remembering, reasoning, and behavior abilities that can interfere with one's ability to function in everyday life. So, dementia is actually seen in a wide variety of diseases. We see dementia with Alzheimer's disease, which I think is definitely the most commonly associated and well known case of dementia, but there's also dementia that occurs with vascular disorders. There is dementia that occurs with Lewy bodies, Parkinson's disease. You have frontotemporal disorder, which you see dementia arise as a part of it. Alzheimer's disease is the largest accounting for most cases of dementia. Some signs of dementia that you might see. Sorry, my screen popped up. Some signs of dementia that you might see are memory loss. This is definitely the most commonly associated symptom of dementia that people are often familiar with. You might also notice there you have some trouble with problem solving or planning things, being a little confused about the time or the place, and even some speaking difficulties or some difficulties with writing. We also have Alzheimer's disease. And so it's very easy with the overlap between dementia and Alzheimer's disease to kind of confuse the two. Alzheimer's disease, however, is an irreversible progressive brain disease that slowly destroys memory and thinking skills. So there are lots of things that can put an individual at risk or at higher risk to developing Alzheimer's disease. That includes things like age, family history. So, do you have someone in your family or multiple people in your family in the past who have had Alzheimer's disease? And also just genetics. Some people are genetically more susceptible to the development of Alzheimer's disease. With Alzheimer's disease, there currently is no treatment available that stops the progression of the disease. There are treatments available currently that are working to slow how it progresses, but ultimately there's nothing available to completely stop its progression. Um, Sorry, I was just checking the chat real quick. Okay. So, that being said, Alzheimer's disease versus dementia, how do we keep the two separate? The biggest thing to remember is that Alzheimer's is a disease, where dementia is a symptom of a disease. So you can have dementia and not have Alzheimer's disease because dementia can be associated with other disorders like Lewy bodies, Parkinson's. So dementia is a symptom, whereas Alzheimer's is a disease. With that, there is a stage between normal cognitive decline that just occurs with aging. So as we age, naturally things change with our cognition and our memory. But there's a stage that comes between that and what we see with cognitive impairment that's associated with dementia. So that would be called mild cognitive impairment. And that is the stage between, again, normal cognitive decline that comes with aging and the more serious decline of dementia. So you kind of fall in the middle there. Not all people with mild cognitive impairment develop dementia. So because it's less serious impairment than dementia, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will develop into dementia down the line. You can kind of fall in that middle ground, and some people just live the rest of their lives at that state. So here's a diagram, and that might be helpful to kind of understand and clearly point out the difference between the two. Because a lot of times you get questions of, well, how do I know if my cognitive state is normal or is a concern? So with the definitions, like I said, it can be hard to kind of know the difference. So some typical age-related changes: missing a monthly payment for something, forgetting what day it is, but then later on in the day, you're like, oh, wait, it's Tuesday. Sometimes forgetting what word to use while talking to having a conversation, um, and losing things from time to time. These are all signs of typical age-related changes. Some signs of dementia that are can be a cause for concern at times is the inability to manage a budget, losing track of the date or what season it is, having difficulty when you're having a conversation, keeping up or staying in the conversation, and misplacing things and then being unable to later trace your steps to find it. Those are more indicative of dementia versus a typical age-related brain aging. So the breakdown of that, four things to look out for or to be aware of that we generally tell people are a signal that maybe we should visit a clinician, is if your memory is impacting how you manage your money, if your memory is impacting you taking your medication, if your memory is impacting your use of technology or your use of transportation. Any of those four categories are reason enough to reach out to your doctor or provider with concerns of how you're doing. The best way is to be seen by a clinician, and they can better paint a picture of where you fall as far as your brain aging. With brain aging, there are lots of factors that impact how our brain ages. And some of these factors aren't necessarily related to our actual physical health. People have different experiences and opportunities. People go through different challenges based off of their background and their situation. These social and structural factors can be really important when it comes to determining a person's overall well-being. Social determinants are conditions where an individual is where they're born, where they live, work, play, worship. All of these affect a wide range of health functions and the quality of life and outcomes that an individual experiences. So, for example, the neighborhood that you live in could impact how much pollution you're exposed to. The school that you go to impacts the quality of education you have. Your family environment can impact the amount of support that you had growing up or even currently. We also have structural determinants. So, structural determinants are governing processes, economic and social policies that affect our housing and our education. So, for instance, things like segregation, unsafe working conditions, not having access to housing, gentrification. These are all policies that are or structures that are put in place that can impact the quality of life that you have. And over time, these events, these life experiences compound to ultimately impact your health. And so individuals' lived experiences ultimately can impact their biology of their bodies. So some examples of structural and social determinants of health include demographic data. So just factors like your race, age, sex, gender can impact your experiences in the world. Your education impacts your overall financial status and health literacy. Your health literacy then impacts the degree to which you have the ability to find, understand, and use information related to healthcare services. Your financial literacy impacts the knowledge that you have about your finances. Your occupation impacts your financial standing. So as you see, everything, it's a cycle. It all cycles and intertwines and overall impacts your understanding and your access to resources. Childhood stressors, subjective stressors. So, subjective stressors are things that you may feel are stressful in your life. Overall lifetime stressors, the neighborhood that you live in, your religion, your support systems all impact how you access certain services, how you access healthcare and medicine. Um, why is all of this important? These all of these factors actually have a role in an individual's risk for Alzheimer's disease. So, for example, having fewer years of education has shown a high correlation with the incidence of Alzheimer's disease. Individuals who worked in manual labor jobs have a likelihood of a dementia diagnosis. We have seen that individuals of lower socioeconomic status are at a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease. And having more stress shows that you have a worsened memory. And so all of these things, which don't necessarily seem like they can impact your health, ultimately do. Now, why does all of this matter? Why does brain health education matter? When we're talking specifically about Alzheimer's disease, currently there are more than 5 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease. That being said, 15 million Americans are currently providing care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease. I actually am going to backtrack. I just saw a question. We have a question in the chat that says, can you give examples of how childhood stressors on your support system or your job affect your risk of Alzheimer's disease? It's a great question. So an example of how childhood stressors and your support system can impact, it's more about how those stressors impact your overall health. So being exposed to chronic stress has been shown to weaken one's immune system, and you are more susceptible to developing a wide variety of disorders. One of those being Alzheimer's disease. The lack of support and the effect that your jobs that I believe I'm going to click back actually. Sorry, I'm going to move some things around so I can go back to the slide actually so we can see it. So the impact of a job, so things like manual labor are like known to increase the chance of developing dementia. So there are certain fields that make you more susceptible just because of the experience and the exposures that you have to a variety of disorders. Did that answer your question? I'm going to hope it's a thumbs up. Clicking through, there's a lot of people on my screen. But Mary Joan, if I didn't fully answer your question, please feel free to chime in again when we get to the end with the question and answer section, and I'm happy to dive back into it. All right, so why does this all matter? So as I was mentioning before, currently there are 15 million Americans providing care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease. Now this can seem kind of confusing because it's like, wait, there are only 5 million Americans with Alzheimer's disease. If anyone knows an individual with Alzheimer's disease or dementia and knows the family or friends that care for them, it can often take a village, meaning more than one person is pitching in to ensure that this person is cared for. So there are actually more Americans providing that care. 1 in 3 older adults die with dementia caused by Alzheimer's disease. And African Americans are currently more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease, but are widely underrepresented in the research. And so statistics like these are one of just a few and many reasons why it's really important for us to think and talk about brain health, because we want to know, with all of this information, what can we do and how do we combat this? So this is just a diagram that I kind of wanted to show you and to go over a bit that talks about caregiving, because with Alzheimer's disease and dementia, as I mentioned, there are many people who are caring for loved ones. 1 in 5 adults are actually caregivers. And this can be a very lengthy and intense journey to go on. Many people spend years caring for their loved one, and you're spending a lot of time throughout your week, over 20 hours. Caregiving, what does that look like? Caregiving looks like household tasks. So cleaning, cooking, making sure that the home is safe. It includes personal care, so bathing. Um, and we find that majority of caregivers are women, and you're caring for a parent or a parent-in-law. And 1 in 7 of non-caregivers, so 1 in 7 individuals who aren't currently a caregiver, expect to become one within 2 years. We have another chat that says, when in need, what is a clinician? That's a great question. So when I say clinician, Basil, I am generally referring to a primary care provider or a neurologist. Clinician really can be anyone. So that is providing a healthcare service. And so if you want a good like starting base when you're looking for a clinician is your primary care provider. But if you currently have a neurologist, that's also a great clinician to see. And whichever point you pick, that provider is able to point you in the direction of who do I see next. Okay, so with all of this, and we hear all of this, it's like, okay, well, what do I do? I want to give you some tips for healthy brain aging. So a phrase that we love to say at the Penn Memory Center is if it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. So that breaks down to keeping your heart healthy through eating and exercise, as well as social engagement. So, social engagement and keeping your brain active doesn't necessarily have to be things like doing puzzles or Sudoku. I think that's often what I hear people say is, do I need to do like a bunch of puzzles? Not necessarily. If you love puzzles, absolutely. We want you to do things that you enjoy and that are engaging to you. So that could be something like gardening. That could be something like taking a walk with friends, participating in a Zoom call like this around other people. You want to do things that keep you active and engaged. You want to make sure that you're eating healthy foods and active and exercise. Exercise looks different for everyone. Um, I was at a clinic actually just last week, and rather than calling it exercise, what one of the presenters called it was joyful movement. So, picking something each day that moves your body joyfully is great for your brain health. All right. Okay, so I do have one other question in the chat real quick. It says, should a neurologist be a specialist in dementia or Alzheimer's? Not necessarily. I think if it's a concern of yours, seeking out a neurologist or again, any clinician is a great first step. And they're a great point of contact that can kind of tell you, do I need a neurologist that is specific in this particular disorder? If that's something that's necessary. That's also a great question for Dr. Walk. I'm sure he would have a great recommendation for kind of how to navigate that. So I would love to save that one to ask him as well. Okay, so Penn Memory Center has created a variety of programming geared towards promoting a heart healthy brain. So one of our programs is called Shake It Up. It's a virtual exercise program that meets on Zoom every Monday at 12:30. It will be going this year through November 28th, and then we'll stop for the holiday season. And so what Shake It Up is it is a Zoom exercise class that focuses on coordinated muscle activation. It's open to members of the Penn Memory Center as well as the community. And again, this is just a way for people of all fitness levels, all levels of mobility, their care partners to move joyfully and be active throughout the day. Another programming that Penn Memory Center is going to be starting, it actually has not started yet, it will start shortly. It's going to be something called Mindfulness and Meditation. I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with mindfulness and meditation practices, but they can actually help ease your stress, calm your mind, and ground you in the present moment. So, this is a great technique to use when you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, need to just take a second to relax. It will be a program that's offered virtually via Zoom, and it will be weekly on Thursday afternoons. This is something that can be done on your own in your home, or you're welcome to do it with a group. And so, again, the goal here is to help build community and a basic understanding of mindfulness and how you can integrate that throughout your daily life, just to help ease stress, calm your mind, and again, ground you in the present moment. How do people become I have a question of how do people become members of the Penn Memory Center, or can anyone join and participate in a program? So it's a great question. Um, Becoming a member of the Penn Memory Center is pretty simple of a process as far as joining our registry, which I'll talk about at the end. I'm going to actually post a link to you for everyone. And through there, you can sign up for the Penn Memory Center Research Registry. That allows us to be in contact with you. You will also then at that point receive emails and notifications about all programming for PMC. So things like mindfulness and meditation, shake it up. When you sign up for that registry, through that registry link, you will get emails for each program and you're able to participate. And how do you hear more about the mindfulness and meditation schedule? Same way at the end, or let's see, I might be able to pop up in the chat now. Actually, I will post the link in here now, and then I will do it at the end of our talk. And through that, you can join the Penn Memory Research Registry, which in turn signs you up to receive all information and emails about mindfulness and meditation, shake it up, as well as the additional Penn Memory Center programming. Okay, so usually if I'm in person, I would have people show their hands. You can type it in the chat, raise your hand. How many of you are big fans of fish? I don't know about you guys, but I love a good salmon, maybe even a shrimp dish. For my friends that aren't big on fish, do I have any fans of chicken? Yeah, Mike likes chicken. Beautiful. James likes chicken. I love a good chicken. Beans. I didn't used to be a big fan of beans, but these days, especially as we get cold, a good dish like chili, beans. Do we have any fans of them? Yeah, John. I said John loves them. Okay. Nuts and seeds. Now, this is something I've recently gotten into. Nuts and seeds, I did not used to like, but I found actually at Trader Joe's has a very large nuts and seeds section. Do I have any big fans of nuts and seeds? Yeah, Sharon's like, that's me, nuts and seeds. And our fruits and vegetables. Anyone big fans of the fruits and veggies? Isabel, yeah, yeah, love a good fruit and veggie. Beautiful. Well, this is great because we're going to talk about a heart healthy diet. So, what is a heart healthy diet and why is it important? Heart healthy diets are very important actually for healthy brain aging. Some of you might have heard the term actually Mediterranean diet. It's really a diet that's based on countries that border the Mediterranean Sea, but these diets include those foods that we just mentioned. So, a heart healthy diet or a Mediterranean diet include things like dairy, fish, and poultry. And we prioritize fish and poultry more so than red meats. A diet that includes lots of fruits and vegetables, cereals, potatoes, all those nuts and seeds. And cooking with olive oil is also really important. We're talking about a heart healthy diet. This is a diet that follows very similarly in line with what is actually recommended for the American Heart Association. And by consuming these foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, fish in higher quantities as opposed to those red meats and unhealthy fats is actually very great for your brain health. All right, so shifting gears a bit, I want to talk about clinical research. So with all of this information, we've covered a lot. We've talked about what is healthy aging versus not, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, cognitive impairment. and some tips and tricks on how do we keep our brains healthy. And so these lifestyle choices that we make with exercise, with diet, are great with help to help keep our brains healthy as we age. But another thing that we can do is be involved in clinical research. Clinical research is one of the main ways that we understand how our brain changes over time. It's a really key way for us to learn more about Alzheimer's disease. At the Penn Memory Center, we offer a variety of clinical research projects that are all targeted towards dementia and Alzheimer's disease. With these studies, there are different types. So we have some studies that are observational studies, meaning researchers are simply watching how our brain changes over time. And then we also have treatment studies. So treatment studies are studies which researchers evaluate potential clinical treatment. So they're investigating some sort of drug to treat a particular disease or disorder. Observational, again, just watching how a brain changes over time. That being said, why on earth should we participate? For yourself. So as an individual who participates specifically at Penn Memory Center in a clinical research project, you receive a comprehensive memory assessment that help you understand how your brain and your health might be changing over time. It's also important to do for your community, for the future of your community. Participating in a clinical research project directly helps advance the research and helps future generations fight things like Alzheimer's disease. Another reason to participate in research is for the support. At Penn Memory Center, we do have a variety of resources from support groups to working with you to write letters to your doctor for the continuation of your care, recommending different resources and providers. Do I see a psychiatrist, a geriatric physician, a neurologist, things of that nature? By participating, you have access and support from a wide variety of services. And then for inclusivity and representation, as I touched on before, African Americans are widely underrepresented in research. They are widely underrepresented, however, are 2 times as likely to develop the disease. And so this just means that we don't have enough information on how this disease affects the Black and African American community. As we mentioned before, there are lots of factors outside of one's just physical health that can impact the disease. And so for all demographics, it's important to have people from all backgrounds of all descents to be represented in research so that care and treatment can be developed that is specific towards them. So with that, I'm just going to talk briefly about one study that we're doing right now in particular. Now, this being said, we have a wide variety of studies. So one of our newer studies is called the ABCD2 Study. That is shorthand for the Aging Brain Cohort Dedicated to Diversity Study. In order to help better understand the way brains age, we received a grant from the state of Pennsylvania. And have partnered with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as well as Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, to enroll 160 participants of Black or African American descent into this study called the ABCD squared, with the goal of diversifying the research field. Because again, Black and African Americans are widely underrepresented in research. Participating in this particular study involves just the collection of biomarker data, so it is an observational study, not a treatment study. What are the steps to participate? Now, this is the steps to participate in any of our studies, whether it's ABCD squared, ABC, which is the Aging Brain Cohort Study. We have a laundry list of lots of things. First thing you do is you sign up for the Brain Health Registry. So that link that I sent in the chat earlier, you would go to that link and you fill out your information. This allows us to be in contact with you about any of the studies. Once that happens, you would meet with a research coordinator who determines your eligibility. So are you eligible for ABCD squared? Are you eligible for ABC? Are you eligible for we have VCID, there are lots of acronyms, we have a variety. And with that, once they determine which one you're eligible for, they walk you through it in more specific. So what are the details of this participation? And we would enroll you in the study. For ABCD squared, participants come in once a year, and you'll meet all of our staff. You have a visit that will include cognitive testing, you get a neurological exam, they take a blood sample and do an interview. We also have some image scans as a part of it, and it's not just ABC. There are different studies that we have that involve imaging scans, and the two scans that you would see would be an MRI or a PET scan. So what is an MRI? An MRI is it stands for magnetic resonance imaging. This is a machine that just creates a picture of the body using magnetic fields. So for some of our studies, you would come in for an MRI. The MRI lasts for approximately an hour. The machine does make a bit of a loud noise, but what we do is we provide you with a nice set of headphones. You can request to play whatever music you want. Your research coordinator is there the whole time. So if for any reason you want to come out of the machine or need something, you just press a call button, and they're right there for you so that you're fully supported throughout it. Then we also have a PET scan. So PET stands for positron emission tomography. So this is a type of imaging test that reveals how your organs and tissues are actually functioning. With this, a tracer is injected into your arm. So what that is it's a substance that actually binds to proteins in your body. And this allows for us to see and measure the proteins specifically in this case, your brain. So what the PET scan is measuring are two things. It's called amyloid plaque and tau tangles. So these are two proteins that are in the brain and that are associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease dementia. So we use this to help confirm a diagnosis or presence of Alzheimer's disease. Additionally, for our studies, we ask for individuals to make sure that they have a reliable study partner. So what is that? A study partner is someone who can help answer questions about how you function, what are your daily activities like, how's your memory been, your thinking, your actions, have there been any changes occurring over time? This partner is someone who would consistently attend research visits with you and support you throughout the study. So again, making sure that you are fully supported not only by the PMC staff, but within your own communities and at home. This is Julius. So, part of what I do at the Penn Memory Center is I highlight the experience of individuals in our community, and I want to introduce you guys to Julius Hayes. Julius Hayes has been a part of our research community actually for quite a long time. He said that it's kind of like a social thing that he feels like he has to do in a small way, to help in a small way. He is a resident of Philadelphia and retired social work supervisor for the city of Philadelphia. He's actually been a part of our ABC study, so our aging brain cohort study, which is one of our observational studies, for 6 years. He joined back in 2013 because two of his relatives and some of his friends were diagnosed with dementia. And so he wanted to find a way to give back and kind of participate to the advancement of research in their honor. And so he has said that we have a quote from him that I would recommend it. Without research, we wouldn't have the advances that we have today. And so it's been great to see Julius grow throughout his time in our study and participating in PMC projects.